All right, before we go ahead and get started here, I have to start with a story from one of my students that just shows how great Git is. And like I said, Git is a way to essentially make save points in your code so that at any point, if you mess up something and you say, I got to get back to at least where it was working, you can do that. It's also a great tool if you're working with a group to have multiple people work on different things and eventually bring them all together in a nice, seamless way. But I do a lot of solo development, and to me, the great thing about Git is just it provides nice records, and like I said, I can go back to anything that I need. So anyways, I had this student, Timothy, that had a lot of different coding problems and things going wrong, and after he had lost a bunch of projects because essentially he deleted something or changed something and he forgot what he did and it broke everything, he finally started using Git, and it just completely changed his world. And he had sent me this message anyways. His ending bit here is long live Git, hashtag Git with the Git. And it just was this moment. He's like, oh, now I get why Git is so important. So anyways, if you go look up this hashtag on Twitter, you can see a tweet from him, me, and other people from courses that have tweeted the same thing. Go join the rest of us. It's an awesome hashtag. So anyways, this will save your bacon. If you don't use Git and you get burnt, you'll think, oh, I wish I really had used Git for this, and you'll see how important it is. So with that said, how do we add Git to a project? Well, Git is not, specifically just for Django projects. It's for any piece of code on your computer. Even outside of code, you could use it for like PDFs, Word documents, whatever it is that you want. So the way that it works is you have to open up your terminal and you have to make sure that you have Git installed on your computer. So the way to check that out is open up your terminal if you're on Linux or a Mac, or if you're in Windows, use the command prompt and just type Git and hit enter. Now, if you see some, words coming out here that shows, how to use Git, the different commands, that means you have Git installed on your computer. If you don't see this means you have to go install it. So I would open up a browser, just search for install Git. Okay, and I believe this is the website, git-scm, and there's going to be all sorts of, installation notes here. So you can see how to do it on Linux, Mac, and all these different things. I believe if you go to the downloads, this is the easiest way to do it. And it will detect which operating system you're using. So anyways, go through that installation process, and then make sure you close your terminal or your command prompt, or whatever it is that you're using. Open it back up, and again, type Git and make sure that you get some sort of output here that shows that Git has been installed on your computer, okay? So let's say that we want to add Git to our project. Remember, on our desktop, we have this folder called the Password Generator Project. So I'm going to move on to my desktop, okay? And on Linux, I'm going to do an ls, or on a Mac, I'm going to do an ls to see what's there. Remember, on Windows, you're going to type dir in order to see that. And with this, I'm going to add Git into this project. So in order to do that, I have to cd into that project. So I'm going to cd into Password Generator. And once I'm inside, this is what you do. You type Git space init, and you hit enter. And that's it. Your project is now a Git project, meaning that you can track all your different changes there. And essentially what happens is there is a invisible folder that is added to the directory here. So if we go ahead and do an ls, you can see there's no sort of special thing here. But if we go ahead and type out ls space -a, this will show everything inside of the directory, and anything that has a dot in front of it is a hidden folder or file. And in this case, that's Git. So it's trying to be out of the way. That's why it's hidden, but we can pretty easily see it. But anything pertaining to Git for this folder is going to be stored inside of there. So what's cool is you can add Git to any folder that you want on your computer. Like I said, if you have like a Word document, you're writing an essay and you want to track the changes as you write, you can totally use Git for that. It's mostly used with coding, but you can use it for other things, which I think is really cool. Okay, so that's awesome. We've added Git, and you might be thinking, well, what do we do next? And for the Windows people out there, I did look. The way to look for hidden things on the command prompt is, I believe, dir/ah, like this, dir/ah. Again, doesn't really matter that you see it. I just wanted you to know that that's where it's being stored. Now, if you're installing Git for the very first time, I forgot there's one additional piece of setup that you'll need moving forward. I had already done this on my computer, so I forgot to mention it earlier, but essentially you have to specify what your name and email are, because any time that you make commits, and we're going to talk about that in a second, you have to have an email and a name associated with it. So if you just go ahead and Google Git add email and name, you're going to see lots of different ways to do this. I'm just going to go ahead and go to the top result here. Basically, you just have to use these two lines here. The first one to say what your name is, and then the next to say what your email is. So for example, I'm going to copy this, paste it into my terminal, and I'm just going to, instead of John Doe, I'm going to say Zappy code, okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing here, except when I go ahead and add this, I'm going to change it to my email. So I'm going to say nick@zappycode.com. Okay, so those are just two pieces that you'll need in order to move forward. I thought I'd show you real quick. What's important here is, okay, how do we actually use Git? Like I said, Git is used to make save points, and those save points are called commits. So if you go ahead and just at any point you move into your directory and you type out git space status, it'll tell you what's currently going on in your Git repository. Repository is kind of the name for your project here. And if you can see, it says we have no commits and we have these untracked files, meaning that they haven't been committed into the project yet. So the way to add items into a commit is first we have to stage them, and we do that by adding them. So we're going to do a git -A and hit enter. And that says, excuse me here, git add -A. And that adds everything inside of your project, meaning all these things that were listed here, into the staged environment. It's not committed yet, but they are staged. So if we do a git status one more time, you can see there's a whole lot of files that have been added here. But these are all the different things that are a part of our project, okay? So you can see all these different pieces here. So with this, we're going to go ahead and commit these. Now that these things are staged, remember, look at this. It says changes to be committed. This means they are staged. You can see if you want to unstage them, this is how you can do it. But then to make a commit, which is going to basically add everything into our first commit, we're going to say git commit -m. The M is for the message. You always have to give some sort of name to your commit. So you can use single quotes or double quotes. I'm going to say something like our first commit, okay? And again, make sure it's in the double quotes. If you're going to add an exclamation point, like if I want to really emphasize, hey, we did this, make sure you do a space afterwards before that ending quotation mark, or else you're going to have issues. So anyways, I'm going to hit enter on this, and all of these files have now been added to my commit, so that if I say git status, it'll say nothing to commit. We're on a working tree clean, meaning that there is no changes, everything has been added. But this is where Git is so cool here, okay? So let me go ahead and fire up Adam here, and I'm going to open up our project, okay? So here it is, and let's say I want to make some sort of change to my project, like I don't really like the button -warning, like I want it to be the info, which is going to give us a different color here. So if I go ahead and save and make that change, so I made a change to one file in our project. If I go back to the terminal and now do a git status, look, it says there are some changes, and it says there's been one file that's been modified, and it's in generator/template/generator/password, okay? So isn't this cool? It will track any sort of changes that we make. So for example, if I go to a different file here, like if I go to my settings.py and I want to change my secret key, I'm going to add some extra characters there. Remember, I save this file, I come back and I do a git status, okay? It now shows that there are two different files here that have been edited. They've been modified. So let's say I want to add these to a new commit. Like I've worked on some things for a while and I want to make a new commit. Again, I just do the git add. Now we could go ahead and say git add, and I only want to add, password generator/settings.py, and be sure to use the tab there. It'll help you a lot with the autocomplete. And if I go ahead and hit enter on this and now do a git status, okay, you'll notice that one of these things has been staged and the other one is not, meaning if I did a commit, only the changes for this file is going to be added to that commit. So if you want to do that, you can, but typically I find it's like I've worked on some stuff for a while, I've got it to a good point, I want to add everything. So remember, that's git add -A, so it adds everything. So now if I do a git status, you can see these things are ready to be committed. So I can do a git commit -M and say something like, I made some tweaks. Okay, awesome. So with this creates these different save points in our code. Now, let's say we want to move back in time and go to any one of these previous commits. Like it's like, oh, you know, things have just not, I really messed something up, I need to go back. If we've currently made some changes, like for example, I'm gonna make a few more changes here, I'm gonna save this, and I want you to notice, in fact, let me do something really clear here. So if I put like Nick at the front of the secret key and I do a git status, it's going to show, hey, there's some changes here. If I want to just get rid of everything that I've currently worked on that's, you know, wasn't in a previous commit, like if I just want to get rid of these changes, I can say git stash, okay? And what this does is it sort of clears those off. You can technically go access that stuff from the stash, but it gets a little bit complicated. There's so many things that you can do with Git. I'm just giving you a brief intro here. But you'll notice now that I've done this, if I say git status, there's nothing there. And if we go back, look, Nick has been removed. It essentially got rid of those changes. But let's say that we want to go back and move to a previous commit. Well, first, the way to see all your commits is you can do a git log. And if we do that, it'll show all the different commits that you have. So you can see there's our first commit. And look, I made a spelling error message here. I made some tweaks. But let's say I want to move back to this commit, meaning the starting period, okay? What I can do is I can grab this big string of letters and numbers for the commit. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to say git checkout, and I'm going to paste that in, okay? So now that we've done this, I've moved back to that previous point. And to prove this, you might notice a small change here, but if we go back to that password.html, look, it's back to button-warning. This is how things originally were. Now, this then gets a little bit tricky because whenever you move back to a previous save point to move forward, you're going to essentially have to like branch off from where you previously were. But there's lots of different tutorials out there that can teach you how to do that. But the big point here is that you have those save points, so you can go back in time and use them. But I want to get back to our current top one here. And so, you can see it's not even showing here. So I'm going to get back to, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to say git checkout, paste that in. And look, now we're back at this point where this has been changed into info. Okay, so that's a little bit of a beginner tutorial there for you. I want to show you how to work with GitHub, which is a website where you can save your Git projects. There's lots of different websites out there, but I really like GitHub. It seems to be the most popular. So go ahead and just go to github.com, and I want you to go ahead and create an account, sign in, and then we'll learn how to upload our project to GitHub. All right, once you've gone ahead and created an account, we're going to hit this plus button here and say new repository. And we need to come up with a name for this. So I'm going to do something like Django 3-password generator. Okay, got to make sure that there's no spaces there, and you can give a description if you want. Really cool, you can choose whether it's public or private. So public, anyone can see your code. Private means just you. This used to be a paid portion of GitHub, but now this is free. And then you can go ahead and hit create repository. Okay, so once you create this, this means like up on GitHub's server, you've made this new repository where your code's supposed to be, but it has no idea about the code that's down on your computer. So you somehow have to send what's on your computer up to GitHub. So as soon as you make one, it gives you this awesome little guide here. And we want to do this push an existing repository from the command line, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and copy this line of code here, and we're going to paste that in, okay? And this basically says, I'm going to add this thing called remote. A remote is a place where you're going to send your code, and it's called, and we named it origin. That's a typical thing that you name one of your remotes origin, like github.com is our origin. And we're saying this is where it lives. And now that we've done that, we're going to do this git push, which means take all the code on our computer and push it up to GitHub. So we're going to go ahead and paste this in, hit enter. Okay, and it's going to go ahead and it's writing these things up to github.com. You might have to put in your password here depending on your situation, but If we go ahead and reload this page, look at this. Oh yeah, here is our project. And look, this is all of our code. And if we go ahead and hit on commits, you can see there's the 2 commits that we have created. And it's so cool. If you click on this, it shows you the different changes that have happened with this commit. So for example, that first one, it had added everything for the very first time. But for example, this, I made some tweaks with the misspelling. You can see, oh, look, we changed this line from saying warning into info, and we changed the secret from being this into that. It's kind of cool to see these different things here, okay? So there you have it. There's your rough introduction into Git and GitHub here. Again, I'm going to be hosting all my code in GitHub. So for example, with my project, the Django 3 password generator, if you want to go get this code, you can go ahead and hit download here, which will download a zip of the project, or you can do the really cool thing where you could copy this line here. Like if you hit the clone or download, hit this little button, this will copy that text there. And then in your terminal, for example, if I move to my desktop, okay, need to go back one. There we go. I'm now on the desktop. I can say git, and I'm going to make a new folder here just in case. I'm going to do make dir hello. This makes a new directory. I'm going to cd into that. Okay, and now I'm going to do git clone, and then you provide the whatever URL of the project that you want. It'll go download all these things. So now you can see if I go ahead and go to my desktop inside of this hello folder, I downloaded this whole project, and it's got everything in there, including all the commits and different stuff, okay? One last thing that I'd like to say is if working with the command line here is kind of frustrating with you, you can always use software to make it a much more visual experience. For example, something that I really like is called Source Tree. With this, if we go ahead and drop our project in here, for example, this password generator, and I open this up, this is a much easier way to work with Git. For example, we can see on the different projects, look, here's the file, there's the changes that happened. And if, I make a change, like here inside of Atom, I change this back to warning, okay? I'll make it uppercase, whatever. And then we go back to source tree here. You can see uncommitted changes. It shows in this file, I've changed this to capital warning. And then if I click here, now it's staged. And then if I want to do a commit, then I can type the message here. It's just a little bit easier to work with. So Source Tree is one of them. Another one is Git Kraken. There's lots of different paid ones, like Git Tower, I believe, is a really popular one, but that's going to cost you like $100. Anyways, feel free to play around with one of these if you think it's easier to work with. And if you like Git, go ahead and work on it. If it's confusing to you and getting in the way, don't worry about it. But I think this is ultimately a good skill for you to have as you move forward. Okay, so I've rambled enough, dove maybe too deep into this, but let's go ahead and keep moving forward with the course and learning more Django.